Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Midnight Magic Musings channel. I'm one of the hosts here on the channel, Lord Cephas. I want to welcome you to this week's entry into our box office report. This will cover the weekend of July 9th and 10th, 2022 at the box office. And we had a major debut this weekend, and it was the #1 film in the country, and that is Thor: Love and Thunder, which brought in domestically $143 million, which is a good haul. Worldwide, it drew 302 million as it accumulated 159 million internationally. And that sounds like a really great number. And it's a nice number on paper, but let's just kind of walk our way through just a little bit. It had some mixed audience reviews. It definitely has had very mixed critic reviews of the movie, whether that played into it or not. Still, 143 is a nice number domestically, but let's take a look at numbers at the box office in general. So there's something we need to take into consideration. Domestically, you typically are only going to make 53, 54, 55% of whatever you make domestically goes back to the studio. So in this case, let's just say they only made 100 million this year, then, or 100 million at the box office domestically, which obviously they made more, but go with me on this. Then if you made 100 million, you're probably only actually getting 55 million back to Disney, back to Marvel Studios. So that's the way the percentage breaks down. If you're talking about internationally, typically you get 42, 43% of whatever the number is. So here's what I mean by that. Let's say that Thor: Love and Thunder cost 300 million to make. Let's say it was 200 million to shoot the film. We didn't really hear a lot about any major reshoots like Doctor Strange had. They had millions of dollars in reshoots. So Thor: Love and Thunder didn't have that. They shot it at the same time that they filmed Shang-Chi over in Australia. They did get some tax credits, some rebates from the Australian government, depending on what sources you believe, probably somewhere in the $16-17 million range for that. So that helps a little bit bring down some of the costs. But if you look at the number, and it's $302 million total, that's adding in the domestic, and that is adding in the international. So 302 million, let's say it only costs 300 million to make the movie and market the movie. It's probably more than that, but we'll just use that number for kicks and giggles. Then you might be tempted to say, well, Lord Cephas, they've actually gone over the 300 million number, so they've made their money. But remember, you only get a certain percentage of the domestic and the international. So technically, on the domestic side, 143 million. So you probably got 65 million going back to Marvel Studios, going back to Disney. If you look at it internationally, let's see, they got 159 million. So we'll round it up to 160 for ease. You're probably getting 75 million actually going back to Marvel Studios. So it's a really good number. Don't get me wrong. But I just want you to keep that in mind as this movie progresses on week after week. We'll see what kind of legs that it has. And based on those numbers that we just talked about, that's going to tell you you're probably going to have to hit somewhere in the 800 to 900 million dollar range to actually make any money on this film. And I think that's going to be a bit of a high threshold. If you remember when Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness movie came out, it made 187 million its first weekend domestically. It was a major hit that week. But in the successive weeks that followed, those numbers dwindled, and it's tapped out somewhere in the 953 million range now. And that sounds like a great number, and it's not a bad number. Marvel doesn't have to set the billion-dollar number as their magic number every time, but it would help based on the amounts of money that are being spent. One of the things that I've discussed with the Earl of Florida on some of our other shows here on the channel is that I think Disney needs to take a step back and look at possibly reducing some of the costs, some of the CGI, maybe bringing it back a little bit more so that the threshold does not have to be so high for them to make money. Because remember, if Marvel Studios doesn't make tons of money, then you have shareholders, you have stockholders with that are Disney stockholders and aren't going to be happy if that number is not really high. So again, congratulations to them. Really good number, but they're going to have to maintain a very high return on a week by week basis. And most of the time, that's not really possible. There is one exception to that. We will talk about that here in just a moment. So Thor: Love and Thunder finishes first with 143 million domestically, 302 million worldwide. So we'll follow that over the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk about that more as we go through. The number 2 movie on our chart for the weekend of July 9th and 10th was Minions: The Rise of Gru, as it brought in even more money. It has brought in a total of $210 million domestically. This past weekend, it brought in $45.5 million. So a really strong number for that. It was down about 57% from its previous week, but that's still a fantastic number. If you look at the total gross for The Rise of Gru, it is just shy of 400 million combined worldwide. It is well on its way to being a success. A lot of families going down to see it. It will make money. This is one of Universal Picture Studios they have in the theaters right now. In fact, they have the number 1, they have the number 5, and they have the number 6 place movie this week. We'll talk a little bit about more as we go through, but Minions is poised to not just make money, but to make a lot of it. Holding strong number 3, I cannot believe we're talking about this again, but Top Gun Maverick ranked in number 3 this past weekend. With a domestic cum now of $597 million. If you add that to the international take of $586 million, it's sitting at just under $1.2 billion. It is a massive number for Tom Cruise, for the Top Gun Maverick franchise. And now what we're talking about is, will there be a Top Gun 3 because of the success of this? I mean, you're looking at Tom Cruise probably clearing $50 million or more for this role, because if you read the Deadline articles and some others, his contract was backloaded. He got points off of every dollar that was earned beyond a certain amount. So as this stays in the theaters and it continues to grow, it made $15.5 million this weekend. It is a massive hit. Why not do a number 3? So we'll see what happens there. I think you will see a number 3. I hope it's not too quickly. I hope they think it out, plan it out, that it's an excellent story. But this is one of those movies that I think is historical in the fact that it is still so popular, going into its 7th, 8th week of release. So great job for Top Gun Maverick. In 4th place, we have Elvis, the biopic about the King. It came in with $11 million domestically. Total right now, it's 155 million worldwide. Here's one of the things I want to talk about with those numbers. So domestically, it's made $91 million to date. So if you figure you probably are getting 55% of that cum given back to Warner Brothers, that's going to put you somewhere 43 million probably is what they've already made back, plus internationally 64 million. You take about 40 some odd percent of that. You add that number together, that is what the studio has made off of Elvis. And if you made Elvis for, and I'm making up a number here budget wise, $50 million, then anything above that they've gotten is making your money or clearing your budget and then making money. So they're well on their way to doing that. So that's Elvis in at number 4. And then at number 5, we have Jurassic World Dominion, which made a little over $8 million this past weekend, 350 million domestically, 526 internationally, for a total cum based on estimates of $876.5 million. A really good run for them. Again, understanding Jurassic World Dominion with the CGI and effects, those numbers go up on the budget, which means they have to hit higher numbers. So remember, you always want to hit the highest number domestically that you possibly can, because that's where the majority of your money comes back. Now, a lot of these movies may not open in China. You say, well, China's a major market. It is. But also understand this, in China, a movie that is released typically is going to get even less than I mentioned to you internationally before. We said it's 43% internationally. In China, you're looking anywhere from only 20 to 25% actually going back to the studio. So if you make $100 million, well, you're getting what, 20 million, 25 million would actually go back to that particular studio. So opening in China is great. It certainly bolsters the bottom line. but those can be a little bit misleading sometimes. And so there's going to be some things we're going to talk about going forward week over week. Those are your top five. Number 6 was The Black Phone, which is doing very well. It's going to be a hit. It's made 62 million domestically, 36 internationally. It's just under 100 million. That will be a success. But I do want to take a moment because we talked about this in our last box office report, and that was Lightyear. And there was some discussion after that. Well, how can you make 55 million domestically and it not be a big deal? Well, that is a good number until you take that 55% of that and realize that's actually what you made for that week. And then you realize how significant the climb is to not just cover your budget, but to be profitable. And one of the struggles they have, and they pretty much, I think, limped as far as they're going to. They made just under $3 million this weekend. And I just wanted to point this out to you. They've grossed 112 million domestically. So you do the 50% or 55% reduction. So you're in the, 55 million range. So basically what they made the opening weekend is what they've cleared domestically. And then you have the international, which is 92 million. All right. So you're going to say 40% of that. So you're still in that range again. So they probably cleared, my math's not going to be exact, probably the studio has probably cleared 80 million on it. So if the budget were 100 or 120 or 150, you can see how quickly you can get underwater with these budgets, with these movies. And so that's going to be a challenge going forward. If it's not a major hit, you can see how these movies can plunge very quickly in terms of Lightyear. Understand, and for all of these movies, as newer ones come out, you have theaters who have to knock out the amount of screens that show certain movies. So for example, Lightyear at one point had 42,000 screens around the country. Then it got knocked down to like 3,800. Now it's down to about 2,000 screens that are actually showing it, which means the less it's being shown, the less money it's going to average. Best as I could tell, it was only averaging a couple $100 per screen. If you do the math on it for the amount of screens that they have, you're going to see it go even less. So that's something to keep your eyes on as we go through the summers. It is the summer of blockbusters. We love those. We really enjoy those, but sometimes those big numbers get a little bit skewed and they kind of change the narrative a little bit. And what we want to do on this channel is being open and honest with you as we can. There are a lot of reasons Lightyear didn't hit. Some people simply couldn't understand why it wasn't in the Toy Story vein, animatronically, I guess, or animated wise, I guess I should say. You have Buzz and Woody. You can't really have a movie with Buzz without Woody because they're just kind of joined to the hip. It was a different kind of movie. I just don't know it landed in a market that wanted that type of movie. There were some politics involved. There were other things as well. I think it just all really snowballed on Lightyear, and I just don't think it resonated with the people. Now, it'll still sell on, they'll have physical media. I just don't know what the number will be. I just don't believe it'll be high enough to pay for that. Whereas you have something like Spider-Man No Way Home, which made just a hair under $2 billion worldwide. And you're still making money off of downloads and purchases off of Amazon, different streaming services, or physical media with different director's cuts or commentary tracks laid down. So there's still money to be made on those kind of movies. So we see those continue to earn even after their box office days are done. Well, that's all we have for now. We do have a couple of movies in the pipeline that are going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks that I do look forward to seeing. You have Paws of Fury coming out, which not just myself, but Kid Duba, who is one of the guests and hosts here on the channel, is excited about. And of course, the DC Pet movie. We cannot wait to see The Rock and Kevin Hart together in an animated movie. Having said that, I am Lord Cephas. I want to thank you for taking the time to join me on this box office report for the weekend of July 9th and 10th, 2022. I hope you have a great rest of the day. We've got more content coming this week. We're going to have another Marvel Thoughts column. We've got the flagship, the mothership, if you will, the Midnight Magic Musing show will be taking place this week. We may even have a little bit of sports and pop culture show pop up this week as well. So we got a lot of stuff coming. Go ahead and smash the like button. Go ahead and hit the subscribe. We really appreciate it. We are blown away in our first month how you, the fans, have responded. We are just humbled and appreciate that anybody would listen to our goofy family, because we are a family-run channel, family contented channel. That anybody want to hear what we have to say. So thank you. We appreciate you. Take care. We'll see everybody soon.